Welcome, everyone. This is actually the second in the What is Enlightenment series, and also it's the first of our Saturday classes, and this is like an inaugural. So, welcome and thank you for being here, Steve. It's nice seeing you again.
Thank you. You too.
Lorraine and Leanne is here. Nice to see everybody. Yeah. So some of you have been in my classes where I've been teaching this new method of meditation. And so that's primarily what this is going to focus on. And of course, the reason why is because it is the fastest track I have ever come across to get into non-dual consciousness. And does anybody here, is there anybody here who hasn't heard that term? Non-dual consciousness? Charlie?
Never heard it.
It's kind of an Eastern philosophy thing, and but you know, people all over the world are talking about it.
I haven't heard it, but it's intuitively, it eliminates the subject and object.
Yes, yes,
It's
that's a
one.
good way to put it.
One, yeah.
Yeah. And the problem with terms such as that, it kind of gives you an idea, but it says nothing on how to get there. And that's been the problem with so many, in my opinion, the problem with so many meditation techniques is that they just seem to take forever. You know, when you sign up for, for Zen meditation, you can expect to spend years, and in all the other forms too. It just the picture in most people's minds is living in an ashram and meditating several hours every day, and you know, that's just not an option for like just about everybody. I mean, the number of people who can do that are so few that they don't even register. So my goal is to provide a way to experience non-dual consciousness quickly and easily. And I know that's counterintuitive because it runs against that narrative that it takes a long time. But here's the thing. One of the misconceptions about it is that, number one, it's difficult. Number two, it takes a long time. But it's so big. It is so important. It's so exotic that it seems unattainable, that it's almost inconceivable even what it might be. And that's not true. That is not what it's about at all. And we have to remember what Jesus said. He said that the kingdom of heaven is spread upon the earth, but men do not see it. And in the New Testament, he said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And most importantly, he said, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And this basically means it's right here. We just don't see it. But the problem is when we say it here, we look around in the room or, you know, where we are and we say, well, it's here, you know, and then we start to think, well, maybe it's a different dimension that's interlaced with this dimension. And all we have to do is adjust our vision and then we can see it. And that's like a misdirection also, a misconception, let's call it. Because when he said it's within you, that's where we have to go. We have to go within. And within, by definition, is away from sensory input. It's away from the world that we see and the world we experience with our physical senses. And so how to do that? There are a couple of approaches. Number one, we have to realize where we locate ourselves in our body. It's like we think we're in our forehead or in our eyes. When we think that's where it seems to be, is right in here. So, and I know many of you have already heard this, but it's so important. The way we get out of here is simply to move our consciousness to the back of our head. So you go within, you close your eyes, and you sense the back of your head as though there were a heat lamp behind you, and you can feel the heat. So you know the lamp is there. You don't have to turn around to look at it. Because if you turn around to look, what's out in front of you turns with you, and then you put what's in front out behind and think that it's behind you, and it's not. This, you can think of this as a brain hack, because when you do that, the mind immediately, your thoughts come to a halt, because the mind is surprised. It doesn't know what's going on. Why am I not here? Why am I now in the back of the head? And so it gets really quiet, because anytime you surprise your mind, it gets quiet. Just like if there were a loud explosion outside in the distance, you'd get really quiet really fast, and all of your attention would be on that sound. And with the question, a huge question, like, what was that? So what we're doing is we're recreating that element of surprise by moving our consciousness back here. It works. It really works. And we'll go through it in a couple of minutes here. I want to explain it first so you have an idea. So once you have your consciousness back there, then it's easy to then move it even further back, about 3 or 4 inches. So it's right behind your head. And that gives you almost the sensation of being in the back seat while you are driving the car. So you're kind of you're behind yourself. This has the advantage of creating what you might call voluntary dissociation. This dissociates you from your thinking mind, which may sound funny, but we are so enmeshed in our thinking mind that we cannot distinguish between it and us, who we are. We're so involved in it. It's like being so busy taking care of kids or watching employees, or where your focus is all out in the world all the time, that you never have a moment for yourself, and you lose yourself. You start to lose your bearings, and because your life is so outer directed that you never even stop to consider what you are and where you are and how you feel even. So what we're doing is we're doing that on purpose. We're dissociating from that, and we're leaving the world. We're getting out of the world, and we're going within, going inside, not inside our body, but inside our awareness. And the way we do that is we focus awareness on awareness itself. Now, there's a way to make this a lot easier, and that is, along with, the mind is surprised by noise, but the mind is also it's also stunned into silence, you might say, by awe. And awe might be experienced when you go into a beautiful cathedral for the first time, and the spaciousness and the visuals, the huge stained glass windows, all of that can just take your breath away. And you get really quiet because you're in a magnificent surrounding. And what creates that awe is a sense of energy. Like you would sense the spirit, you'd sense the presence of the spirit. So we have to create that as well. And we use our imagination to do that. And what we create is a column of light right behind us. A column, just like a column you would find in a temple. And that column is as though it has an intense light source going right up through the middle of it, and it's translucent. And so it's just glowing with light. And you place that right behind you. So you've got it right behind you. And again, you don't have to, because you know what it is. And so now what you do is you simply back up to it and you lean against it. And you feel the power of that energy in the column. And you move your spine and your body right back up into it. That energizes your whole being. Now there's a third step in this. You want to make sure that that light comes from the superconsciousness, not from your conscious mind, not from your subconscious, but from your superconscious mind. And as the word implies, that's the consciousness that's above you in awareness, above you in vibration, you might say. So the way we do that is we imagine a star out in the cosmos, like directly above us, but a little bit behind, so that as we put our attention on that star, we're also leaning back into the straight line between that star and us, and through us, of course, to the center of the earth. So you can imagine that star way out there. You can even think of it as your personal Star of Bethlehem, because the Star of Bethlehem stood right above where the Christ being was born. So what we're doing is we're reaching up into the highest superconscious awareness that we can connect with. And it's not that hard, it's just what's highest to you, the most high. And you sense the light of that come down, and that's the light that's lighting up the column behind you. Okay? So just to recap, we're taking our consciousness out of our facial area, out of the forehead. We're moving it back into the back of the head. Then we're going to move it even further to a few inches behind the head. And we're going to see that column of light. And that light comes from the star directly above us, a little bit behind. So we're reaching up. We're not looking up. We're reaching up in consciousness, connecting with that super light. And we're bringing it down into the light of the column. And then we're backing up into it, leaning against it, leaning into the power of our own spine. So let's take a moment and do that. We'll just take a couple of minutes and just do it together. So sit up straight. Bring your chin in so that your head is aligned with your spine. And close your eyes. Now put your attention on the back of your head. And you're not looking at it. You're putting your consciousness there. So in order to do that, you have to back up into that. And just kind of turn off your looking machine for just a second and feel it. Feel that. And now move even farther back, a few inches behind, and see that column of light running straight up and down, perfectly vertical. Feel it as though you felt the infrared energy from a heat lamp placed behind you. You don't have to turn to look at it. And know that that light coming out of the column is coming from high above, the highest source that you can connect with, the all. See the light of the column, just back up into it. Here, we're not using our eyes. We're dropping out of our eyes. Sense the energy in that column. And as you back up into it, feel it enliven you. Your spiritual body is lighting up. Perfectly straight. Notice how easily you can be drawn back into regular consciousness where you're sensing what's in front of you. And just turn away from that and back in. And as you sense that energy, now just put your attention on your heart. And let that energy come down from your Star of Bethlehem, down through the column of light, down through your spine, out through your heart. Sense how that energy radiates out into the world like a disc, surrounds you and goes out in all directions. Disc of light. Don't look, just feel. Very good. Good. Now bring your attention back into your body. You can feel your hands, you can feel your feet. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So I think you can see with this that it's like we're entering into another dimension, because we're leaving the world of 3 dimensions and we're entering into a world where there are no dimensions. And consequently, there's no space and there's no time in there. As we back up into that column of light, that light becomes all there is. And that light essentially is awareness itself. That is awareness without content. Awareness aware of itself. And awareness is energy. Energy and awareness are really the same thing. So as we go in there, we light up. Our whole body lights up. And I think you may have noticed that when you went to your heart, that also quiets the mind. Because your consciousness is not up here, it's in your heart. And the heart doesn't think like the brain. The heart thinks, to be sure, but not like the brain, not like the mind. So when we tap into that energy and then we let it express through the heart, it changes everything. It changes our entire experience of the world. And we become more aware of the connections that we have with other people and other beings, even the connection with ourselves, because the heart has to do with connection. It's those invisible lines of connection that go out in all directions and connect us to the people in our lives, primarily the people, also all of nature. So how was that for you? I'd like to share what you experienced with it. And don't be worried if it's non-spectacular.
I thought it was really intense as far as the energy, feeling the energy when I backed into it. Very real and warm, actually, just kind of a warm feeling, but yeah, very peaceful too, but
Great.
intense.
Yeah.
You know?
I was explaining this to someone at one point, and he was working in a hospital, and I asked him if the hospital had a room, somewhere on the property where the main electrical trunk entered the building and then was redistributed from there. And I imagined that main electrical line coming in would be pretty big, be a substantial cable coming into the service panels that would then redirect electricity throughout the 2 or 3 buildings there. And he said, yeah, that there is that kind of room. And I said, well, imagine walking into that room and seeing that main cable and going up and just, being close to it. It's not going to shock you because it's insulated, but you can sense the energy in it. It's just a lot of electricity. It could even be vibrating. That's what you want to sense with your column of light. Like that energy is in there and it is vibrating, it's vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
It's fully alive. And that is what, that will silence the mind. You see, that quiets the mind, because it's like, whoa, it's got that whoa factor going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what you're feeling. When you
I
back,
lost awareness of the body, awareness. I did not have awareness of my body
yeah,
during.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, say more about that.
Um, there are some things happening around. I've got the two dogs that are kind of acting up, and I was able to not be aware of that. Right before we started, one of them came up on my lap and left, but it just kind of went away. It moved back. It moved away.
Yes, right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And they,
Michael,
Yes.
did I understand you? Did you say that energy and consciousness are pretty much the same thing?
Energy and awareness.
Energy and awareness.
Yes, I distinguish between awareness and consciousness. It's just a useful definition that to be conscious, you need to be conscious of something. So consciousness implies subject object. Awareness, so if you take the content away from consciousness, consciousness itself disappears, because consciousness needs two things. It's like a mirror needs something to reflect. And consciousness is essentially a reflective function in our inner makeup. Awareness, on the other hand, is like what powers that. So awareness is just simply awareness, but without content. See? So it's like the ground on which, or the field from which consciousness emerges, but it itself is not conscious of anything. And it's a little bit of mumbo jumbo, I realize, but that's how I separate the two, just so that we can work with the terms more effectively.
What does it mean? Steve mentioned it earlier. What does it mean? Removing oneself from oh God, what did you just call it? You just called it a second ago. Subject to object.
Yeah, you want me to answer, or Steve?
No, oh no, you. Steve mentioned it, and I right away thought I've never heard of that before. And so now you're mentioning it, so I want to understand what that means.
Yes, right. Because we're so enmeshed in the world, in the our consciousness of the world, that we lose ourselves.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's I am seeing that. You see, that is separate from me. I'm over here, it's over there. So that, and we live in that world of separation.
Okay.
That disconnection. So it can be done. You can, by putting your consciousness in another object, that's not your body. You can break through that barrier, so to speak. But it's better to let that part of it happen organically or naturally. So what we do, we consciously and thoroughly dissociate on purpose. So we turn away, we shut down all of that, and we go back into the core of us, and then we come out, you see? But every time we come out, we're changed a little bit. See, we are engaging in a process of transformation. It's immediate, but it's incremental. The more we do it, the more it affects us. And then we may notice that after a while that the world is starting to look different. And especially if we allow that energy to come in and then express through the heart, and we start moving through the world from that part of our awareness. See, to let that move into the world through our heart, that turns off the thinking mind, and then we become more observant. And we may even start to experience bits of clairvoyance or clairaudience or clairsentience. We start to know things and experience things that we would not normally notice. Like, because
Almost like analysis and experience. To me, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about things, I'm the subject and the thing I'm thinking about's the object.
exactly.
Whereas in the experience, there is no separation.
That's right.
Hmm.
Yep.
Thanks, Stephen.
Can we get everybody to mute their themselves so it eliminate the background noise?
Yeah, if everyone would mute yourselves, a little button at the lower left, and then when you want to say something, just unmute.
I'd like to say something. This is Lorraine.
Hi, Lorraine.
Hi, Michael. I had the experience 33 years when I was 33, and I've never been able to get back to it. No space, no time, no self. But I didn't see it as light, it was darkness. So it was just dark. So I'm wondering if that was, you described something like light, but mine was darkness. So I'm wondering, is there a difference there? And I was never able to get back to it.
How about today in this meditation? Were you able to connect?
No.
Okay. Well, let's talk about light. Light, when it's out in outer space, is dark. Light has to hit something and illuminate it before you can see it. So what you encountered in your experience is what the Kabbalists, in the writers of the Kabbalah, called the Ein Sof Or, which is Hebrew for no limit light. And what it is and they call it the radiant darkness. So this is light before it impinges on anything. And when we go within and we really connect with our own awareness, that's what we're seeing. You see, we're adding the element of bright light to it with our imagination. And that helps, but it doesn't have to be a bright visible light like that. It can be like literally like the heat coming off of a heat lamp, which you can't see either, but you can feel it. So this radiant darkness, this pure limitless light is pure energy. It is pure awareness, pure energy. So that's what and I'm by the way you described, I mean, I can instantly identify with what you're saying, Lorraine, that experience, almost identical to how I experience it too.
So Michael, I would like to say that when that happened, there was no feeling, no nothing, except when I came back out of it. Then I realized I'd been there.
Yes, right.
But not in the actual experience. But when I came out, I realized it left an imprint.
Yes. And was that the only time then you experienced it?
That was the only time, and I didn't know how I got there. Well, I do. I know what I was doing at the time before that happened.
Uh-huh.
And as I say, nothing when it's happening, I guess. And then when I came out, I realized, and I've never been able to figure out where I was, but it was beautiful. And, I've never known how to get back.
Well, I hope you can do it with this meditation technique.
Let's go. Thank you.
Yes. So what Lorraine is describing is slipping into a space that's not a space. It's as though we're leaving the domain of three dimensions, where we have a vertical, a horizontal, and a front and back. Those are the three dimensions. And what we're doing with this exercise is, instead of projecting these lines, this grid out into the world and using it to orient ourselves, we're traveling inward on those lines of force, those axes. We travel inward and we collapse those dimensions into zero dimension at the center. And as we do that, then it becomes a portal and it opens up. It's like a rift in the space-time continuum, how they would say it on Star Trek, right? It creates an opening and we slip into there, and there is no dimension in there. So there's no time, there's no space. And it's either like what Lorraine experienced with just darkness, or it can be nothing but light. Either way, it's the same thing. But it's also, we sense that it is our source. That's where we come from. That's who we are. It's what we are. So we come out of that into the world. We experience the world from there, but then we get lost in the world. You see, and we forget our source. So with this, what we're doing is we're intentionally reconnecting with that innermost part of us. We are truly going within. And this is what Jesus was talking about. And we know because he said, when you pray, and we can interchangeably use that word with meditation, because we're connecting with God, right? Three-letter word God, which is like the ultimate, the most high thing we can connect with conceptually, you know. So we're intentionally going within, and he said, when you pray, go into your closet. Closet is like a wardrobe, right? So you open the doors, you turn around, you step into it backwards, and you close the doors. See, if you use that visualization, it helps to see what going back into this feels like. So it's leaving the world. He said, I am not of this world. And when we do this, we are recognizing that we are not of this world. We are not a product of this world. Our consciousness is not a product of the brain. It's the exact opposite of that. So what we're doing is we're leaving the world and we're drawing back into the source, almost as though we were swimming upstream or traveling upstream to find the source of the river that is the flow of our life. So here we flow into the world. We're like a streaming phenomenon. We stream into the world and we interact with the world. This is going upstream. And as we go upstream, then we come into direct contact with what? With the self, and that word is like, it's not really adequate because it objectifies it, right? We back up into you back up into you. This is what you are. And the more you do it, then the more that starts to come into you and into your everyday activities, to where you can be washing the dishes or loading the dishwasher or getting lunch ready for your kids, or giving a presentation at work. You can be doing anything, and all you have to do is put your attention on that space behind you, that column of light, and then you deliberately dissociate yourself from this thing, this outer part of you, and you start coming from there. Your mind quiets, and then you're able to access super consciousness. Your thoughts clarify, your intention is purified, and you find then that you are in the exact center of the universe, where that's where you are, is in the exact center. And from there, you can pivot in any direction that you need to go. So that as the circumstances of your life change, you can pivot and be fully present with whatever comes up. So this gives you enormous amounts of agency in your life. It gives you freedom of choice, because you're not caught up in the circumstance. You are observing the circumstance. And so as those circumstances change, it doesn't change you, because you now see them as circumstances and not the world that you were caught up in, you see. There's an enormous benefit to doing this.
May I ask a question, or would I be interrupted?
No, please.
So, thank you. So I've been struggling with this. So I'm sort of studying with the Buddhists. So they're always into practices, practice that, practice the other thing. And I'm wondering if we nurtured what you're talking about, whether we need all that practice. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Oh, I know exactly what you're referring to. And it's such a great marketing message that you just gave me. No, you do not have to do all that stuff. Now, see, now we're into the problem of being attached to our practice, right? Because if you're religious about your practice, then you're not going to want to give it up. So I'm telling people that you can do this, you can use this and take it into your practice, and see how that works. My understanding of this from my own study, and when I study myself, right? I study self-awareness. If I have a question about something, I see, like if I'm wondering what grace is, the theological concept of grace, I don't look it up in books. I look it up in myself. What is grace, and how does it function in me? You see, that gives me an immediate connection with any of those concepts, because it shows me whether they're real or not. And if it's not real, I'm not interested, right? So what we do with this there's another factor that has to be considered here. We're at the turning of the age. We're moving out of the age of Pisces and into the age of Aquarius. And whether you're into astrology or not, it doesn't matter, because everyone's sensing the shift. We're going through fundamental changes in an overall sense. And for a number of factors, one of which is the amount of energy we're being bathed in all the time, through, just the microwaves and radio waves and all sorts of electromagnetic energy we're in a milieu of that humanity has never experienced before. It's almost like if that electromagnetic spectrum were water, it'd be like we were deep in the ocean right now, because it's everywhere. That has an effect. It raises the overall energy level of the planet. And we know that the planet itself vibrates. It's the specific frequency. And we also know that that frequency itself is rising in frequency. So there is so much more energy available to us right now that these ancient techniques that we've been using for thousands of years, they were designed to work through an enormous amount of inertia and deadness that is no longer here. We are living in a sea of energy that makes it, these realities that those techniques were set up for, almost instantly available. All we have to do is look in their direction and boom, we're there, because we're riding on this enormous wave of energy that's making everything internal that much more accessible. It's like right here, right now. So we're taking advantage of that. These new techniques that are coming out, and I'm not the only one teaching this kind of thing. There are others out there too. And I didn't learn it from them. This has been evolving in me for over the past several decades. I mean, I remember first having the sense of this when I was a student in the order that I was trained in. But slowly but surely it's been coming into a real coherent form. So the way we're practicing it now would not have worked just, a few years ago. That's how fast we're accelerating. So we want to take advantage of the energy and use it to open up the pathway within us to the kingdom of heaven, because this non-dual consciousness is what Jesus referred to as the kingdom of heaven. He said the kingdom of heaven is spread upon the earth, but men do not see it. So that's what we're dealing with here. We're going into the kingdom of heaven. So it's fortunate for us because we have this free pass almost. All we have to do now is just seek it, is just work with it and allow it to happen, you see. And now by using this technique, this method, you can get an immediate sense of that zero dimension, and then come back out and go back in and come back out. And even in a single sitting, it's until you really, get practiced in it. So the real shift, there will be a moment when, like you experienced, Lorraine, like it was so significant and so lasting that it stayed with you for the rest of your life. That will happen, but you cannot really direct when that will happen. So we're stepping into the kingdom of heaven, and then we're coming out. But at some point, it's going to burst forth and be a permanent part of us. And that happens, like Jesus said, no one knows when that happens. It's like a thief coming in the night. All those parables that he said, if you're familiar with the New Testament, he had so many parables that dealt with how it's a surprise when it happens. And when you talk to people today who have very much had this experience, they all say that it happened by accident, that it wasn't something they made happen. They made it possible for it to happen, you see, and that's what we're doing. So we make it possible, and then like St. Paul says, in the twinkling of an eye, we're changed.
So may I say something here, Michael?
Yes, please.
So I called it grace because definitely I couldn't make it happen, and I can't seem to make it happen again. So I read this thing every day, and it's about grace. And so we should be doing this anyway, whether we can make it happen or not, you're saying.
Oh, yeah, because in essence, we're making it happen, but it's kind of like I say, it's going in and coming out, going in, coming out. And there we'll reach a threshold with it where we've done that enough to where then it really kind of catches, you see, and then it really transforms us from the inside out. So yeah, I really encourage you to, to practice this, but don't be dogmatic with the way that I'm describing it, because let it show you, right? But the thing, the crucial thing in this method is that you back into it, that you're not looking, you're taking your consciousness out of your looking function, out of the looking mode, because looking is an act, it's positive action. It's not passive. Seeing is passive. So, and we should call it sensing to separate it more from the act of looking. So we're either looking into the world like to see what we can see, or we're sensing what's directly behind us, and we back up into it. So that one thing removes the biggest obstacle between you and the experience, which is this looking mode. This, and it's very tenacious. It really wants, we really are always looking, and we're always going in a direction, with a goal and all of that. So we're voluntarily and deliberately dissociating from all of that, and we're coming back within ourselves. We're backing up into this field of energy that it only, I say it's behind you, but in reality, it's not behind you. That's actually where you are, is right behind you. That's where you are. And your body and this world is like a projection of that. It's all a projection out in front. So by dissociating from that, you then realize, oh, well, what I thought was behind me, that's actually where I am, you see? So you back up into it, it's a little behind you, and it's above, it's that super consciousness. And then you realize that's who I am. That's what I am. And this out here is kind of like a puppet show. It's like the story of the man in the cave, of Plato's cave. Where everybody's looking at a projection on the wall and so lost in it that they have no sense or no consciousness of who they are themselves. You see? Plato he nailed that one. That was perfect analogy for what we're actually experiencing. So the more we back up into this, then the more we get a sense of where we really are. And then once we know that, then we can become that more and more, or let go of all of this other that's not that. You see? So it's something we work with over time. It's a practice. But here's the thing. If you practice it faithfully and do the exercises that go along with this, then what you're doing is you're constructing a pattern. You're constructing a grid within which you can operate. And then all you have to do, once that's constructed firmly in your consciousness, then all you have to do is think about it, and you're there. Just the thought alone will put you there. So then you can be in your world doing whatever you need to be doing, and just simply sense it there. And then you're connecting the two worlds. You literally become one who walks between the worlds. That's what the Native Americans, how they referred to it. But what you're actually becoming then is a mediator, because you then become, like one of the unity ministers said, you become an inlet and an outlet for God. You are on that boundary between the world of 3 dimensions and the world of no dimensions. And that flow of energy that comes from there, which constitutes who and what you are, then as you become conscious of that, wherever you put your attention, you're going to provide a pathway to that infinite source of energy, to whatever you're putting your attention on, and you will literally change your world.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
How do we get our mind or imagination to not want to create imagery for us? How do we just be? Is it through prayer? Through wonder?
Can you give me an example?
Like if we're going into that space and we're creating this pattern, we might also be creating a construct through our own imagination of what it should look like. You know, I often think of the movie Cocoon, you know, where the beings came and they kind of like got out of their bodies and then they were this light body. And so I'm thinking, you know, my imagination would want to go to something like that. And so it's like,
Well,
how
that
do we
wouldn't be so bad, would it? You know, to be
No, it wouldn't be bad at all,
like that.
but are we creating it with our imagination or our
Yes.
experience
Yes, yes.
rather than just being in the place where we're trying to, you know, be in that inlet outlet?
Yes. Well, we have to use our imagination to make the original connection, you know, and what we're doing with the imagination is we're kind of giving it a framework, you know, for the reality then to fill. So by visualizing a column of light behind us, we're giving that a form, and a form that then it's behind us. So it's out of this world and it's behind us. So it is where the intersection is between this world and the kingdom of heaven. So we're providing that form. It just so happens that that form of a column of light is universal and has been described by saints and seers and sages for millennia. So what we're tapping into something that's already been constructed. It's part of our collective imagination, you might say. So, but it's just a tool. Once we sense that and then we back up into it, then that tool is no longer needed. And then we become the column of light. See, then it doesn't even have a concept at that point. This is the true non-dual nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
Once we step into it, then all constructs disappear. So
May I say something here, Michael?
yes.
So I hear you, and maybe that's what I need to do to get back. But initially, I didn't do anything like that. It just happened. That's why I call it grace. I mean,
Yes.
I was doing something, and I just became absorbed, sort of, you know. So maybe to get back, I need to do that. But it just happened.
Yes.
So deep, deep concentration.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because it takes concentration to turn off the sensory panorama. You know, you have to, and concentration is not like, I love the way this one guy described it. He said, if I tell you, you know, say, take an object, say a spoon, you got a spoon on the table, and now concentrate on it. Concentrate. You know, it does nothing, right? Except annoy you, right? So, but if I say, okay, here's a spoon on front of the table, notice how it's shaped. Notice how it has that end on it, and then the way the handle curves and how it balances on the bottom of the spoon and the tip of the handle. And notice how it's weighted, you know, like there's more weight in the handle than there is in the spoon. And see how the surface reflects light because it's polished metal. You see the difference? Because what I'm getting you to do then is to think about it and to put your attention on it. And that way you're not, you know, you don't have to stop your thoughts. You're controlling your thoughts. You're making yourself think about the object of your attention. So as you practice that, that gives you greater ability to then turn away from the world and to visualize the column of light within you and to move towards it without the distraction of incoming thoughts. Because all of those thoughts that come to you are going to be world related. They're going to be object related. And what we're doing in this method is we're turning away from the world of objects. You see, we're going precisely in the opposite direction. So yes, there's a degree of mind control. And Teresa, what you were asking about, you know, the imagination coming in with images, you want to limit that and keep the one image as to the column of light and backing into it. And then anything else that wants to come in, just let it go and consider it as something external to you. So in imagination, we have to think of it in terms of it being an organ of perception. So when we visualize something, what we're doing is we're calling it into being as a mental construct, but the imagination itself, which is universal, we're just tapping into a universal function. It will provide you with the form, with a universal form, an archetypal form, and then you adjust it from there. You see, so when you think of a chair, you're not building it from scratch. What you're doing is you're tapping into the collective imagination of chair. You see, and it will appear. And then you can do with it what you will. You see how that works? It's almost like if you're using a new, AI image program, you give it instructions, but then it provides the image. You see, it's not coming right out of your mind. Not yet.
My question was how then to live between worlds and to bless and be blessed.
Yeah, good question. So that all comes down to your intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where intention comes into play. So, and intention, we guide our intention with our dedication. With like every morning I get up and I bless the city I'm living in, and I say a prayer, and I have this wonderful large window in the kitchen that overlooks pretty much the whole town, and so it's a perfect spot. Gee, I wonder how I wound up here. So I can bless this town every morning. So that's like a dedication, right? I'm dedicated to that ritual. That is informed by my intention. And as I dedicate myself to it with discipline, that feeds back into and fuels my intention, making my intention greater. You see? So this is how we live between the worlds. We live, with our intention, and we bolster it up with our dedication. And that's held in place with our discipline. So it's very important that we dedicate ourselves to the inner life, but with the intention of integrating it with our outer life. And if we're tapping into this enormous energy within ourselves, what are we going to do with it? It's like money. You don't want to keep your money just always in the bank. You want to spend your money, invest your money, and get your money into motion, right? It's the same with your energy. So the more, and spiritual energy is unique in that the more you give it, the more you get it. This is why Jesus said it's more blessed to give than it is to receive, because it's in the giving that you receive. Okay, so we're at the top of the hour, and are there any other questions? And we're just going to keep delving into this, and next week we will do some more together you know, we'll go through the process again together, but try it out, you know, during this week, and work with it and see where the roadblocks are, see if there's anything getting in your way. But I think you'll find if you do it, that it gets easier and easier. But don't get hung up on these ideas that, you know, you're going to turn into that, you know, body of light like you see in Cocoon, you know, that may happen at some point, you know. It's great. It does.
I like that idea.
I know, right?
They had energy. They gave the older people this renewed energy around them. I thought, oh, what a great analogy.
Well, we'll start with ourselves. Let's give ourselves that extra energy. And then as we have more energy, then we can't help but impart it to others.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Yes.
Yes.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for the clarity of the instruction and the plan for, okay, so you reach this space, that so now what? You know, it's overwhelming, and it's powerful, and it's beautiful, and it's blessed, but how to be a giver, and how to then conform with all of the madness around us, and still find our center and come back to it and be good.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Finding your center, that's the most important thing, because then you have agency.
Mhm.
If you're caught up in the swirl of your life, you have no agency. You're just part of the swirl.
Mhm.
All right. Well, it's wonderful seeing all of you. I hope to see you next time. And let's work on this together. You know, as a group, we can really advance a lot more quickly with this than we can individually. So again, like next time, we'll do another meditation together, and we'll just walk through it. And if you practice between now and then, you'll have questions, and then we can talk about those.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Steve.
Bye, Steve.